911, what's your emergency? 911, what's your emergency?
Be advised, Car 4 has control of the pursuit. Proceed with caution.
Hello, everyone. Boy, it's been a minute since I've seen you all. It's good to be here. So much going on in our world of true crime. So much to talk about. Today was the sentencing of Kegan Kline. A lot was said in court today. We are going to go over that. Nothing was said in court today that even closely implicated him in the Delphi case. So I thought that was extremely important to say right off the bat. But there were some things that I found a little bit interesting that were things that I wanted to bring to you guys' attention. I'm sure that most of you have been following this anyway and have really, kept up on it throughout the day. There was a ton of people covering this. I was following it on Twitter with a WTHR reporter who was in court, and he was giving basically moment by moment discourse on his Twitter feed as to what was happening. So I felt that that was a really great way to stay connected. And I didn't want to go live until we got the sentencing. And I know that it was a huge deal, and I know that everybody was interested. So we are going to talk about that tonight. We're going to talk about the Long Island serial killer case. We're going to talk about the Carlee Russell case. And we're going to definitely talk about Bryan Kohberger because there's been a lot that's come out. There was a huge defense document dump just a little while ago. And that's been pretty interesting. So yeah, just a lot of stuff. And I've been taking some time away, as you guys have noticed. and I'm feeling good, and I'm glad to be back here tonight because I really have missed you. But I just needed to spend some time with my family, and my grandson's starting kindergarten next week, and I just wanted to spend as much time with him as I possibly could. And he wears me out. There's just no getting around it. I mean, he has more energy than I could ever imagine having at this age. And it's just amazing how these kids can just absolutely just wear you out. But I'm so glad to be with you guys. We're going to have a good conversation, I'm sure, and get a lot of information out there to you. And so let's just get going because we've got a ton to cover tonight. Hey, Josh the Posh, how are you? Oh, by the way, if you guys didn't notice, I did gift some memberships tonight. So congratulations to everyone who got gifted a month membership to my channel. And I do appreciate all of you that contribute and donate to my channel to help me keep things going. The subscriptions and the costs to do my research and stuff on these cases, and just to keep the channel up and going. There is cost involved. So I do appreciate it. I appreciate people who think of me and give me chai teas over on Buy Me a Coffee. That's just such a wonderful way to show me some love. So I wanted to say that I really appreciate all of you guys and everybody that does that for me. Hey, John, how are you? So good to see you. Hi, Beach Fairy. How are you? Welcome, welcome. Hey, Colette, how are you? Hey, Stephanie, good to see you as well. Hey, Mitzi Scott, how are you doing? Hey, Brittany's World. How are you? So good to see you, my dear. Thank you for being here. Hey, Deborah. How are you? Good to see you. Hi, Danger Dave. Missed you. Hope you're well. Hey, Copper Horse. How are you? You are so welcome. I'm so pleased that you're here. And I appreciate you. Hi, Angela. How are you? Good to see you. Hey, James Powers. Boston, Christian, how are you? Always good to see you. Hey, Yorkie. How are you, my dear? So good to have you in the house tonight. Obviously, there's a lot going on in the Kagan Klein world, right? And for all of us that have been following that, good Lord, took a long enough to get us here. Hey, Betsy Bling, how are you? Hey, Tech Death, how are you, my dear? Good to have you with me. Love your music. Thank you so much for your intro. Hey, Mandy. Let's see. So anyway, well, here we go. So let's just jump right into it. You know, today was the sentencing day for Kagan Klein. As everyone knows, Kagan pleaded guilty to the charges against him. So he doesn't have the ability to appeal. He does have the ability to appeal his sentence, and he has told the judge that he wants to do that. So it doesn't surprise me when you're sentenced to 40 years in prison at the age of 28. I can imagine that it is a daunting thought that you're going to spend at least, you know, I would say 30 of it in jail. That means he'll be an older man when he is able to get released. The child sexual abuse material charges against him were horrific. Some of the children depicted in the images and the videos were as young as 3 years of age. For me, that was so hard to even fathom that someone would be interested in that kind of imagery. And I know from all of the true crime crap that I cover and the cases and these monsters, they're out there and they live among us. And he put on a really good show in court today. He did speak on his own behalf, and he apologized to both his victims as well as to the police officer that was the teenage male model that he stole his photos from, and made the Anthony Shots profile. So, hey, Jill, how are you? And so he was in tears when he was giving his statement. He said that he was, like I said, he was sorry. He apologized to his victims. He apologized to the police officer, and he apologized to anyone and everyone that may have been hurt by his actions. But what I think is interesting about all of this, I think the maximum sentence that John, that he was given was 5 years on any count, but they were served consecutive. So that's why it ended up mounting up to the 43 years, but he got 3 years off suspended because he's already been in jail for 3 years waiting trial. So that's how that works. He is, in all intents purposes, he's going to go away for a very long time. And I do not have empathy for him in this situation. He brought this all about onto himself, and he is lucky that the judge didn't give him a longer sentence. The prosecution was asking for 50 years, and the defense today said that they were hoping for a maximum of 11 years because he didn't actually solicit the pictures, a lot of the pictures that he had, which I think is an absolute ridiculous reason. I don't know who these defense attorneys were for him, but to me, that was an asinine defense, in my opinion. And obviously, the judge felt so too. He did apologize to his victims, yes, and he said that he was sorry to them. But again, there's so much to talk about that went on in court. There was a parole officer who she testified today and stated that he was a danger to society and that she felt if he was released that he would reoffend. I don't feel that I agree with her, because I don't feel that these types of individuals can be rehabilitated. I just don't. And I don't feel they should be given a chance to hurt other children. And that's how I feel about it. So often, you guys, we hear about these cases or other cases where these individuals are caught and they have been in and out of trouble, either offending and hurting children, and then be allowed to get back out on the street and do it again and do it again and do it again. And I didn't want to see that happen with him. I hope that when he does come up for parole, that someone will go and advocate for the victims and keep him in jail for the length of his sentence. One of the problems we have in this country is when people get these lengthy sentences, they never ever serve it. They end up getting off for good behavior, and before you know it, they're out. And that's something that we need to really, really take a look at as a society. And if we're going to be utilizing prison and we give people 40 years in prison, it should be 40 years. I'm sorry. This good behavior crap is crap, in my opinion. So at least he did apologize. So many of these guys don't ever have anything to say, whether he meant it or not. Only Kagan knows that for sure on whether or not he did, but hopefully he will learn something while he's incarcerated. I don't know that he will, but Detective Vito from the Delphi case was on the stand, and he did testify today. And he said he came into the case in 2019, and he said there was enough evidence to arrest Kagan in 2017. It never was made clear on the stand today or in the during the testimony as to why he wasn't arrested in 2017. And that has always bothered me. And I think somebody needs to answer that question in law enforcement. Doug Carter was present today in court. He was not in uniform. He came as a civilian. And I found that to be quite interesting, that Doug Carter, the superintendent of the state police in Indiana, came to this sentencing hearing. And I think that speaks volumes to many different things going on here. But kudos to him for going and seeing this through. I think any of us that has any kind of conscience or compassion would find this kind of offense despicable and disgusting and horrific. It came out in court today that the age of the girls he was preying on most often was between the ages of 12 and 14 years of age. And these are young children. I don't care what they may look like physically. It seems that because of hormones in our food and all kinds of things, children are maturing physically much quicker than they ever did before. And it doesn't matter what they look like physically on the outside. Their maturity level is still that of a child. Teenagers' brains are not adult brains, and they have so much left to do and grow. And these preteen girls and these preteen adolescent girls are sometimes everything happens in their bodies way, way, way before they're ever ready to deal with the repercussions of their actions. And half the time they don't even know what it is they're doing and the trouble that they can get into. Hey, Grismatically, my dear, I am so, so happy to see you. How are you, my friend? I'm so happy you're here with me. And so these are things that we need to think about when we think about these kinds of cases, and not just with Kagan, but with anyone who's been charged and found guilty or has pled guilty to these kinds of offenses. This is not minor. This is not somebody who is been stopped for a DUI or, this is huge. Absolutely huge. And the emotional toll that this can take on the victims, their families, it can be lifelong. And it's a lot. It's a lot. One of the things, my good friend Chris, Indie Archive, he is a wonderful person. And the work that he does for our community is amazing. And if you guys haven't paid attention to him, please make sure you go over and subscribe to his channel. He constantly is doing drone footage from everywhere. And he sent me some photos today from Peru and from the courthouse, and told me to go ahead and use them. And I thought that was really wonderful of him. He did show this picture, which I thought was, or gave me this picture, which I thought was quite interesting. Hold on one second here. I just want to see if I can make it bigger. There we go. So this is Tony Klein's house in Peru. And yeah, so much has gone on at this house and was talked about this house over the last at least 2.5 years. Once we found out about Kegan Kline and everything, today in court, Kegan, it came out that Kegan said that his dad did not have any part in this. His dad did not have access to his phone, and he also knew very little about social media. Now, I am going to go out on a limb and say that I don't agree with the whole he didn't know anything about social media, because he was extremely active on Facebook. Tony was, until all this happened. And then he stopped being active on Facebook. But yeah, I don't buy the whole thing that he didn't know about social media and how social media works. But anyway, with that being said, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that did happen in the court case today. So let me find it. So they did read a statement from the deputy prosecutor did from the police officer in Alaska, who photos were used to create the Anthony Shots profile. And he stated that he was disgusted, he was humiliated, that his face was used to lure children. And he said that Kline was a monster and that he only wished that he could have put the cuffs on him himself. So the defense, like I said, had argued for 16 years sentence, 5 suspended. So basically the 11 years. And their biggest thing that really stuck out to me was that they thought that the judge should consider that Kline did not create or ask for many of the images that he was charged with possessing or disseminating. And that's not how child sexual abuse material laws work. And whether he's creating the images or not, possessing them is disgusting. And the fact that this man finds gratification in children as young as 3 years of old sexually is horrific. So it took the judge a while to come up with his verdict as far as what he was going to sentence him to. And I thought that that was interesting as well. It meant that he really thought about things before he just went ahead and sentenced him. But he was, like I said, he read his prepared statement in court and stated that he was in a deep state of depression. He was shut up alone in his house. He said he wished that he could have made better choices and gotten a high school diploma and his driver's license, which I think there's been a lot of speculation over the years on whether or not Kagan drove. Kagan did not drive. He didn't have a driver's license. He said he made fake profiles because he was lonely. Again, I find that just ridiculous. People don't catfish underage girls simply because they're lonely. He said he also knew that it was wrong. He said he never left the house. He never had any intentions of meeting anyone. And he took full responsibility for what he had done. And he said, again, that he apologized to everyone. He was sorry to each and every victim. And he also apologized to the man whose photo he used. Kathy Knight was the probation officer who testified that she believed that he remains a huge risk to the community and is very likely to reoffend. And I think that the judge took all of that into account. When Vito was on the stand, Vito testified that women started reaching out to Kagan Klein in jail, and that he was trying to get sexual conversations going with them and was offering to provide information about his case and the Delphi case in exchange for sexual conversations. We all know that there are people that have claimed in this community that they were in contact with Kagan and was having these conversations with him. But I don't believe that anything he told them was true or real. He was doing this for sexual gratification. He's a manipulator, a liar, and he's good at what he does. It really does bother me that Vito testified that there was enough evidence to arrest Kagan Klein in 2017, and he was not arrested until August of 2020. He lied. Vito said that Kagan lied to police in his original interview, but agreed to a polygraph test on a different case, which is, as we know, the Delphi case. He testified that while he was in jail, Kagan had been reaching out to random women, soliciting sexual conversations, and he says that Klein even got his mom to provide contact information for women. Now, that I thought was just unbelievable, you guys. His mom was giving him phone numbers and contact information for women for him to contact for sexual conversations while he's been in jail. What kind of mom does that? This whole family is just screwed up. I'm sorry. Vito also testified that Emily Ann, the profile Emily Ann, which we all know about, asked the victim of count 1 to meet at a hotel to have sex. That did not happen. The victim did not realize that Emily Ann was actually Kagan Klein until she was interviewed by police in January of 2022. So the victim did not know that Emily Ann, who she'd been contacted by and was talking with online, was actually a man named Kagan Klein until she was interviewed by police in January of 2022. Vito said that the victim count on count 1, which was 4-1-16 child solicitation, was identified as a then 13-year-old girl from another state. Emily Ann was introduced, or she met Emily Ann on the app Meet Me. And this victim confirmed that she had sent sexual photos and a video to Kagan taken while she was in her mother's hospital bathroom while her mother was sick. I thought that was just incredible. Vito also testified that Kagan admitted to receiving over 100 photos and 20 videos of underage girls, and that they were all sexually explicit. Vito said Klein said he never shared the images with his father, and his father did not have access to his iPhone. His dad did not know that much about social media. The phone that they found all of the images on, according to Vito, was the phone that Kagan turned in after the rest of the phone and technical data, the iPads, the iPods, and stuff were taken from the house in 2017. The phone they found all this information he's charged with was his most recent phone, and that phone was not turned over until after he came back from his interview with the police in the police station. He was the lead detective on Kagan's child pornography case. And he said that very early after they arrested Kagan, he admitted to creating the Anthony Shots profile. And the prosecution also clarified through Cecil, which was a police officer who did all of the forensic analysis of all of the devices. And he said that no Tony Klein user information was found in the iPhone, Keegan's most current device, on which the evidence was collected for his criminal charges in this case. So all the criminal charges brought against Kagan comes from his current, at the time, his current iPhone, which I don't think any of us thought was the case, because when we were reading the affidavit and the information in all those documents, we were given all this stuff that was found on all these other devices. Well, they didn't use that information. The information that they used to get all of the criminal charges against him was from his most recent phone. Cecil did say that Tony Klein, Kagan's father, had profile information on a couple of the electronic devices that was confiscated by the police, however. And I found that to be quite damning, in my opinion. If he had profile information on a couple of the electronic devices, to me, that's bothersome. So I don't know. It just seems like there's a lot of stuff that we just don't know yet. Let's see. We all remember that the Klein's residence was in Peru. It's this house right here. It was raided 11 days after the Delphi murders in February of 2017. And that's when investigators found more than 100 sexual images of underage girls on the Klein's devices. His catfishing social media account communicated with Libby German shortly before she and Abby Williams were killed. Nothing in the court room came out today about the Delphi case. However, nothing implicating Kagan had an involvement in that case in any way. Kagan was handcuffed and wearing an orange jail jumpsuit when he came into court today. He was seated with his two attorneys, and the prosecution had 5 people at their table. And Timothy Spar is the judge in Kagan's case. And he, I think, did a really good job today in listening to everything on both sides and making his decision. They said that some victim impact statements would be read. I haven't heard what those statements were. If anybody out there knows, please let me know, because I would be interested to know what some of the victim impact statements were that were going to be read in court today. The state police commander is Christopher Cecil, and he's the overseer of the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, or the ICAC, in Indiana. And he investigates people targeting children online, as well as selling and possessing CSAM material. He did the forensic examination, as I stated, on all the electronic devices in this case that were seized in 2017. But he was not asked to do that examination until 2020, you guys. He was not involved in the original investigation that led to raiding Klein's Peru home. So something just doesn't add up here. I mean, I just don't understand what the heck's going on and why Kagan was not arrested in 2017 and why they let this man walk free for 3 years. And it's just ridiculous. I just don't get it. Christopher Cecil said he did forensic exams on 7 devices, 5 phones, a tablet, and an iPod. 6 were confiscated at the raid of the house, and the one phone, the latter iPhone, was turned over later by Kagan. And Christopher Cecil says that the Klein's devices had several social media apps downloaded, including Snapchat, Twitter, My Yearbook, which is also called Meet Me, Skype, and Kik. Devices had profiles of Emily Ann and Anthony Schatz. Cecil said that, and testified to the fact that Emily Ann's profile was portrayed by Kagan Klein as a female teenager attracted to other females, who was unsure of herself, thought she was ugly, had a brother, Kagan, and a dad named Adam. Patterned to reach out to random strangers looking for sympathy and sharing of photos. Cecil testified that Emily Ann targeted girls between the ages of 12 and 18. Once the relationship was built between them, a profile would ask for photos of private parts, offer to pay for those photos, introduce the person to Kagan's real social media profile, and even ask, "Would you have sex with my dad?" Cecil testified that Kagan used Emily Ann's catfish profile to gain these children's trust. This was pure grooming on his part, and he was doing this with victims from all over the country. Cecil testified that Anthony Schatz's catfish profile was on Instagram and Snapchat and portrayed him as a wealthy, attractive young male. Cecil said that Kagan Klein's internet searches included children having sex, children in sexual positions. His internet history included rape videos, sex role-playing websites, and Russian photo sharing sites known as a hub for child pornography. Cecil said that investigators specifically identified 6 or 7 underage female victims of Klein's crimes among the more than 100 sexual photos on his devices. Cecil said he has no evidence that Klein ever paid for photos or ever met anyone in person that he messaged online. Cecil said Klein was a minor himself during some of the activity found on his devices. And the prosecution clarified that when they cross-examined and re-cross-examined Cecil, that no Tony Klein user information was found in the iPhone, his most current device on which the evidence was collected for the criminal charges in the case. I just think that all of that, you guys, is just crazy to me. I just don't understand. I don't know. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I think it's so shocking. It's just shocking. There is so much that we thought we knew about this case that we obviously didn't know. I thought for sure that some of the information that came off of the Samsung phones and the other phones were going to be used against him. They talked about all the internet searches and the weird internet searches that happened back in Vegas. None of that stuff is really talked about here. And I'm really curious about that because some of that stuff really still bothers me to this day. So there's just a lot of unanswered questions here. And even though the case is done and it's been adjudicated, he's pled guilty, he's been sentenced, I still think that there is just absolutely so many questions that law enforcement needs to answer regarding this case. So in my mind, it's just not over for me. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but that's how I feel about it. Like I said, I'm just still kind of in shock over some of the testimony and some of the things that they that they talked about. And I knew, we talked about this so many times on this channel about there's always the possibility when we go into court and we get a case into the court that you're not going to get all the answers. You're not going to have all the information. And I do not believe for 1 second that we have all the information on this case. I just don't. Mandy says she thinks that Tony Klein totally played his own son to take the fall. Not that Kagan didn't do terrible things, but I agree it's not over. Yeah, I don't think that this has anything to do with the Delphi case. I just don't. I don't think the Kleins are involved in Abby and Libby in any way, shape, or form. But I do believe that there is some reckoning that needs to be happening here with these two individuals. And I think that this, we'll find out eventually that there wasn't enough to charge Tony with. And that, they may know very well that he was involved in some way, but if they didn't have what they needed to press charges or bring charges against him, that could also be an issue. So we just don't know. It's just crazy. And one of the things that I find crazy about this whole area is that we have Delphi, we have the Kagan Klein case, and we have Flora. And all of these cases are, as John France just said, mysterious at best. How can you have such craziness in such a small county of 20,000 people? How can things be so ridiculously crazy? I just don't, like I said, I just don't understand. The more and more I get into this stuff, the more and more I feel like we just don't know what's going on in this county. And I still say that it's bizarre at best. I mean, they came out and told us after Kagan's arrest that they had broken into the largest CSAM ring in Indiana's history. Well, if that's the case, how can the defense sit up there and say that he wasn't disseminating any of his images? What are we talking about? What's going on here? So yeah, I just, in my opinion, me personally, I do not believe that they are at all involved in Delphi. So that narrative for me is gone. It's long sailed. I just don't believe that they are. And yes, Mandy, for sure. All the deaths by fire in Carroll County, like I said, we have got a serious arson issue. Yeah, just crazy stuff that needs answers. And hopefully eventually someday we may get them. Who knows at this point in time. I did want to say really quick, because I think this is worth noting, you guys, because we talk about these cases and it gets to be so negative and so daunting emotionally. There was some good news this week. Alicia Navarro, an Arizona girl who went missing from her home back in 2019, was found safe in Montana. And I mean, I can't even imagine how her mother must feel. But she lived in Glendale, Arizona, and she went missing in 2019, and she was found safe in a border town, a very small border town in Montana. During a news conference yesterday, the Glendale police spokesman, Jose Santiago, announced that Alicia was found safe, and they had received thousands upon thousands of leads in this case. She was described as a high-functioning autistic teenager, and she left her home in the middle of the night over 3 years ago on September the 15th. She was 14 at the time of her disappearance. According to police, she was found in this Montana town that is very close to the U.S.-Canadian border. Santiago said that they are extremely happy and at the same time are very hopeful that they will be able to supply the family with a little more closure. The loved ones say that she's a high-functioning girl with autism who did something her mother calls out of her character. Her mom remained relentless in her search for her daughter as years came and went, and she never stopped her social media onslaught of trying to keep her daughter's name out there and keep everyone thinking about Alicia and where she might be. Alicia is now 18 years old and she will be soon 19. And she showed up on her own to the local police station in Montana. They did not tell us what town, but they said that it's 40 miles south of the Canadian border and it's very tiny. They did provide videos and a photo of Alicia when she came into the department. They did ask her in the video if she had been hurt, and she said no one had hurt her. When she was asked by police if she was hurt in any way, she told them no. She thanked the police department for helping her. When she showed up in the police department, Alicia identified herself as Alicia Navarro, and she basically asked for help to get her cleared off of a missing juvenile list. She is now of age, and it sounds like she left on her own free will. She's not in any kind of trouble. She's not facing any kind of charges. And she's not being held against her will anywhere. She's coming and going of her own free will, and she's been extremely cooperative, both with the police department in Montana, as well as the federal partners and police department in Glendale. They said she was happy, she was healthy, and she's ready to move on with her life. Glendale police said that the FBI are in Montana, and they are further investigating, trying to figure out where she's been for the last 3 years. They are asking for her privacy at this time. Alicia's mom did post a emotional video. Her name is Jessica Nunez on Facebook about the news. And she said, I do feel that I owe this video to the community and to God. First of all, I want to give glory to God for answering prayers and for this miracle. For everyone who has missing loved ones out there, I want you to use this case as an example. Miracles do exist. Never lose hope and always fight. My daughter, Alicia Navarro, was missing since September 15th of 2019, and she has now been found safe. She says she doesn't know the details at all about her daughter's disappearance, but she can confirm that she's safe. She said that it was recent news for her, as she'd only heard about it about an hour before. It was posted on social media and all over the news, and she didn't have any details. But she said the most important thing aren't the details, it's the fact that she's alive. She has been reunified with her daughter, and it was a very emotional one. Those who knew Alicia were astonished with the latest development in this case. They're just ecstatic. I never gave up hope, said Dale Lissay. So grateful to God that she's been found safe. Lissay said he didn't know Alicia too well because, in his words, she was extremely shy. But Lissay said, however, he did get to know Alicia's mom and even helped her with her efforts to find her daughter. He printed off over 300 flyers for her. Others in the neighborhood where Alicia lived before her disappearance said the case rattled them for years. One man even said Alicia disappeared. He never let his little sister walk alone to school since then. There's not a lot of children around here, but those with children were just terrified that it might happen to their children. When they had spoke to Jessica, her mom, before the 2-year mark of her daughter's disappearance, she held on to hope that one day she would be reunited with her child, and that day has come. And I thought it was important, you guys, to talk about this case, because I can remember 5 years ago on Reddit when I was on Reddit for Libby and Abby, and so many people were talking about there was no hope to ever solve the Delphi case. No hope at all. There's still people out there that don't believe that the Delphi case is solved, even though someone's in custody and has been arrested for the crime. And we have to remember that there's always hope. And if we take away the hope from these families, what do they have left, you guys? I mean, what do they have left? Trent Steele was a private investigator who worked on Alicia's case, and he's the president of the Anti-Predator Project, which is a nonprofit agency helping families with cases centered around missing people and human trafficking. And Steele said that Alicia's case was not cold, and his team dedicated 50 hours a week to it and had received hundreds of tips. And he was getting tips in as far away as Los Angeles to New York with alleged sightings of her, even out there in Florida where he lives, he said in 2022. And none of them ever panned out. Before her disappearance in 2019, Alicia stayed home often. She was into anime and played video games online. She's described as very smart, but introverted, and had met people through social media. Before she left, she wrote a note for her mother. In the note, it said, I ran away. I will be back later. I swear. I'm sorry. and she signed it Alicia. Nunez noticed the back door was open to her home, and she found a stack of chairs against the block wall in her yard. And it seemed like she had jumped that part of the wall, and shoe prints went straight over there. When Navarro left home, she had her MacBook and her cell phone with her. Since that day, there was no digital trace at all of her. And like I said, gut-wrenching, and thankfully they found her. So very, very good ending to a very sad story, because her mother lost 3 years with her daughter, but at least she gets to be reunited with her, and they can hopefully start anew. So, yeah. The other story that was breaking as I was coming online, guys, that I thought was just crazy is an 11-year-old girl in Florida has been arrested after she prank texted 911 to say that her friend was kidnapped as a part of a YouTube challenge. The 11-year-old texted updates to police for an hour and a half, describing the male suspect and saying that he had a gun. And she confessed that this was a prank and it was part of a YouTube challenge. The girl texted 911 Wednesday morning to say that her friend, a 14-year-old, had been abducted by an armed male driving a white van on South I-95 in Oak Hill. The Volusia Sheriff's Office was immediately, what the heck's going on? The girl said she was following the van in a blue Jeep. The 11-year-old will not be identified because she is a minor. A dispatcher to the sheriff's communication location advised the sheriff's office at 9:45 a.m. of a suspicious incident reported by text message. She continued to text updates for the next hour and a half, describing this male and saying that he had a gun. And the deputies responded, along with the help from the sheriff's office aviation unit and officers from Edgewater, New Smyrna Beach, and Port Orange, to search for this vehicle out on the interstate. But no van was ever found. Around 10:30 a.m., deputies tracked the cell phone that was texting 911 to a home in Port Orange. Once at the home, they spoke with the girl's father, who said she was inside with her family. As deputies approached the girl, she was holding her cell phone, which was ringing as she walked out to meet deputies. When answered, Volusia Sheriff's dispatch was on the line, and deputies verified that they were on scene. She told the deputies she was inspired to prank 911 through a YouTube challenge and thought that it would be hugely funny. The child was charged with making false police reports concerning the use of a firearm in a violent manner, a felony, and misuse of 911, a misdemeanor. The sheriff's office shared a snippet of body cam footage showing the girl with her hands cuffed behind her back with her face blurred in the clip. The girl says shakily, "I'm not going to ever do this again." I should certainly hope not. She was transported to the Family Resource Center for processing and then transferred to the Volusia Regional Juvenile Detention Center. And it is not immediately clear if she has a lawyer or not. Sheriff Mike Chitwood condemned this prank as dangerous and warned parents on the importance that they monitor their kids' social media use. We're going to investigate every incident, but today it wasted valuable resources that might have helped someone else who legitimately may have needed our help. I don't know what's going on, but kids out there. It's just crazy, and I don't understand any of this. Parents do need to be monitoring their kids on social media better, for sure. Obviously, you can't be there 24/7, but these kids, I mean, she's facing a charge of a felony offense at the age of 11. This will affect her for the rest of her life. So it's not funny. This reminds me of back when I was a kid, and everybody thought it was funny to scream fire inside crowded places of business, or movie theaters or whatever. How funny is that? Where is the humor behind that? I just don't understand. So as we're talking about hoaxes, we're going to move on to the Carlee Russell's case. I did cover her case on my channel, and I did tell you all that I was very much not believing her story from the get-go. It made no sense to me. I didn't believe for one minute that a toddler was going to be running around on an interstate, a major interstate, dressed in only a t-shirt and diaper and no shoes at 9:30 at night. And nobody else would stop along the road, and that she would be the only one that would be able to see this child. This was a busy interstate, a busy road. You could see all the traffic on it in her video. It made no sense to me. But what also didn't make sense to me is why on earth this woman would make something up like this, or fake her own kidnapping, or whatever it was that she was doing. Her attorneys came out today and said that she's doing better, but she's still dealing with some things. Obviously, she's dealing with some things. She got caught. I have no idea what this woman's mindset was, but it doesn't take away what she did. Even if she's got mental issues, which she never was diagnosed with prior to this, I'm almost feeling like this was a cry for attention, because her and her boyfriend were not doing well. And I don't know if that's what this is, all about. But why was she looking about getting one-way bus tickets to Nashville? There's just a lot that just still doesn't make sense. But she's awaiting the decision of the state of Alabama, the state of Alabama, on whether or not she's going to be facing any criminal charges for faking this kidnapping. And frankly, I don't believe they should let her off for this. These kinds of things, not only the amount of money that was spent and manpower and hours that went in to look for her, but the anguish and the emotional anguish of including a baby in this whole scenario. The first responders had to be losing their minds trying to figure out where this child could be, where she could be, why they didn't have a missing child report, what was going on. These people are human beings as well. These first responders, law enforcement, all the agencies that came to her aid, they all have families. They have children. You don't think that this really gets to them when they have these kinds of cases? It's just beyond me, you guys. I just don't get it. She's 25 years old. She was a nursing student, and she admitted that she lied about her purported kidnapping, which went viral. As you guys well know, she was all over the national headlines, all over local, state news. The federal investigators got involved in this case quickly, and they spent 2 days searching Alabama for this woman. She disappeared after calling 911 on her way home from work on July 13th, and she told the dispatcher that she stopped her car on the side of a highway on I-495 after she claimed she saw this toddler walking alone alongside the road. She reappeared 2 nights later at her parents' home, and she only briefly spoke with detectives. They still have not had a chance to sit down with her and talk to her. But she told them that she got out of her car to check on the child, and a man had come out of the trees, grabbed her, took her to a remote home for 2 days, took pictures of her, and before she was able to escape. Her family soon doubled down in public statements and in a televised interview. Her mother told the Today Show that her daughter was traumatized from the incident and that she was absolutely sure her daughter was telling the truth and there was an abductor that was still at large. Well, Russell's boyfriend claimed in an Instagram post that she was fighting for her life for 48 hours while she was missing. But investigators didn't buy it. And they soon discovered Russell had prepared for this disappearance by taking toilet paper, a bathrobe from her job at a local spa, buying snacks at Target before making her 911 call. And she repeatedly searched online for information about local bus tickets, Amber Alerts, and the movie Taken, which is about an abduction. When police held the press conference last week laying out Russell's timeline, noting that they were unable to verify Russell's story and telling the public there was no kidnapper on the loose, police knew she was lying at that point. There was no kidnapping. And then finally, she admitted this week in a statement read by her attorney that she did not see a baby and did not leave the Hoover area. She did not have an accomplice. She was not in a hotel or was with anyone while she was missing. Tomar Latrell Simons, who now says he's Russell's ex-boyfriend, made a new statement this week identifying himself as Russell's ex-boyfriend and saying that he was disgusted by this fabricated incident. A number of Russell's family members, including her mother and father, have now deleted or restricted their social media pages. A representative from the Hoover Police Department did not respond to people to request any comments on this case. And they do not have, at this time, any updates on potential charges, you guys. She's likely going to face them, though. She's going to likely be faced with charges for filing a false police report. And there's plenty of evidence against her for that. It's a pretty strong case from everyone who has prosecutorial my brain is not functioning right now. Experience, sorry. Emery Russell's attorney said he met with police for a short meeting on Wednesday and that he's hopeful that the two sides can reach a resolution soon. And he said hopefully they can get to an end game. Well, I don't know what game he thinks they're playing, but his client should be facing charges, in my opinion. When these kinds of things happen, it hurts all victims of crime. And it's like, I mean, you know, I just don't understand what the mentality is that would cause people to do this. But it is, to me, a cry for attention, and for sure. And hopefully it brings about some attention that she wasn't hoping to garner, because it's just unbelievable. Oh, Mindy, that's crazy. I have heard of that before. I've heard of toddlers being out by the road, their parents falling asleep, or or worse. But it's just not something that you hear about. And we're talking about a major interstate. Even the police said that she had talked about, she was inching along, driving along on the shoulder of the road for 600 yards, which is the equivalent to 6 football fields. There's no way a little toddler could walk that distance in the time frame that she was describing. These hoaxes, she's not the first person to do this, but it seems to be happening more often. And I think that there needs to be some stiffer penalties for it, to deter people, or to, even if it doesn't deter them, to just put these people in their place. It's just, to me, it's just absolutely crazy. So I wanted to talk about the Long Island serial killer case, Rex Hueremann. That case has been unbelievable, you guys. Not only the way it broke, but all the things that have been happening since, while I've been away. They were doing an extensive week-long search of his properties, of his home. They found a walk-in vault in his basement. He had over close to 300 guns in the home. Only 98 of them, I believe they said, were registered. They did not say whether or not all of the guns needed to be registered in the state of New York. I think he had some long guns and stuff like that that might not have to be, but still unbelievable. I don't know if you guys have had a chance yet to see his interview that he did on YouTube last year, where he was being asked about his job and the things that he did for the besides his architecture, because he was doing some sort of consulting for people to help them out with their building codes and the building code department in the city. It's just, yeah, that is a really interesting interview, you guys. And it really says a lot about the Rex Hueremann that a lot of people, I think, didn't know. I see a narcissist. I see a person where it's all about him. He's touting how great he is, and what he does. And I mean, this guy is definitely got confidence. He's the kind of person that is super scary, because he does fall under the radar. And he did. They dug up stuff in his backyard. Police have been tight-lipped on whether or not they found anything. They did say that they used ground-penetrating radar, and it led them to believe they needed to do some digging. Hey, Jinx. How are you, my dear? So good to see you. Hey, CJK. How are you? So good to see you. You're right, Dave. They're going to have to spend more money to prosecute her now. And yeah, Brittany, Jesse Smollett 2.0 for sure. It's just crazy. Hey, Louisa, how are you, my dear? So good to see you. Yeah, I think them having to pay back all the money would be that they spent to look for her would be a good way for her to have to, pay for what she did. Oh, I know. That sentencing hearing was long. I was following it, like I said, on Twitter. It took forever. So for anybody who was there, I'm here to tell you, what a long, long day. long day. Be safe out there, Dave, while you're driving. And so, Rodney Harrison, the Suffolk County Commissioner, he told reporters this past Monday that Hueremann kept guns inside this walk-in basement vault, and it had a big iron door. And there's been a lot of speculation. Nothing has been confirmed, but people are wondering now if he used that vault for other things, and if women, his victims, could have been brought in there. Had anybody been actually unlived there? And nobody has talked about that. They don't have that information yet. It's going to take a long time to go through all the evidence that they took out of this guy's house. It sounds like there was a hoarding situation in the house. There was just lots of stuff everywhere, very cluttered, very in disarray. And it sounds to me like it's just going to take a long time for them to get through all of that stuff. But Rodney Harrison said that they took so much items, and they do believe that it was very fruitful, and that the items that they took is going to help them. And I think that that's good news. They dismantled the wooden deck in his backyard, and before they began to do their digging in the backyard. And they're, like I said, they're just trying to see if that massive Pequot Park home was the site of any of the cases and the women being brought there, and that's where their murders happened. Everybody knows by now that he was arrested earlier this month. He's been charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder and 3 counts of second-degree murder in the deaths of Amber Costello, age 27, Melissa Barthelemy, age 24, and Megan Waterman, age 22. And he is being looked at in the 4th victim. All of the girls, women, were known as the Gilgo 4. He pleaded not guilty. Police say that DNA evidence connects him directly to these murders. And his wife's DNA was found on their bodies. They believe that that was transfer DNA from him. It was hairs. Her hair was found. And his DNA was also found. So there were reports and this is, again, guys, while I keep my channel to fact-based information, because people were going crazy on social media and people were talking about a soundproof room that had been found in his house, and authorities said that is not true. There is no soundproof room in this house. He had a vault where he stored guns. The soundproof room and the vault, that's the message that got misconstrued. And Rodney Harrison corrected everyone at the press conference on Monday. He is the primary suspect in the disappearance and murder of Maureen Brainerd Barnes, age 25. They are currently running tests on her evidence, and believe that they are probably going to be able to press charges on that case as well. All 4 of these women were in the sex trade, and they went missing, and their remains were later discovered on Gilgo Beach more than 10 years ago. And as we all know, when you are in a marginalized profession, or if you are in a marginalized demographic, you are less likely to get or garner the attention of law enforcement. However, this case has been everywhere, and people all over knew about it. And there was corruption happening in the Suffolk County police area. between the commissioner and the police captain. They both ended up charged with corruption for trying to cover up the corruption of the police chief. And that unfortunately tainted this case and caused this case to stagnate and to not go places as quickly as I believe that it should have. But the case remained unsolved. And I think, it gained huge notoriety when it became the focus of the 2013 best-selling nonfiction book, Lost Girls. And then Netflix did the true crime movie of the same name. And I think that helped to blow the case up nationally and internationally for people. He used burner phones to contact these women and lure them out to the Massapequa Park area. And the district attorney, Ray Tierney, said he would then murder them and would discontinue the use of the burner phone. And he did that 4 times. And they were able to follow the pings of the burner phones. And they all of this information and data points to this area where he lives. Tierney said that the investigators found that he had a concerning internet search history as well, which allegedly showed him obsessively looking up his victims and their siblings. A number of the victims' family members have said they received taunting phone calls from the man who claimed to be the killer. And he had little to say when they took him into custody. He was very quiet and mostly kept to himself after he was arrested. He said that he believed once one of the officers said that they had him under arrest. He asked why, and that's pretty much the most of what he said. And he is very quiet at the Riverhead Correctional Facility where he is being held. He is not saying much at all. What I do think is interesting is that his wife this past week filed for divorce, and it was not contested. And she was granted, I believe, the divorce. So that happened really quickly, which you can imagine. His adult daughter worked for him, and they have a son that is, from all accounts, an adult but has special needs. So these family members didn't have, from all accounts and according to police, did not have any idea what this man was up to. He has property down in South Carolina. His brother owns property down there as well, and had stored the avalanche, the green avalanche that they were searching for in this case. They had eyewitness accounts not only of him and that describe him almost to a T in height and build, as well as the green avalanche where one of the victims was seen getting into this vehicle. And they found that on the property in South Carolina. So yeah, what a wild case that's unfolding there. And one of the things that I think is interesting about it is he also has property in Las Vegas, and it'll be real interesting to see. Hold on one second. What happens or what transpires in Vegas, because they have a lot of missing women in Vegas as well. So it'll be really interesting to see if there's anything that connects him. One of the things that I found interesting, I was listening to a prosecutor from New York on News Nation this week, and they said that one of the things that's the problem in New York is that you cannot enter his DNA into a database searching for other crimes until after he's been convicted. That's a law in New York. So I thought that that was quite interesting. So let's move on to the Bryan Kohberger case out in Idaho. That case is ramping up. We've got a court date for trial October 1st, which is less than 3 months away, 2 months away now, really. And I don't know if we're going to get there or not. I mean, I don't know if they're going to end up asking for a, if they're going to ask for a continuance, or if they mean the defense needs more time. They have sent terabytes of discovery to the defense. And it's just crazy. I mean, so much going on here. But anyway, according to the defense in Bryan's case, they didn't provide any proof, but they're saying that he wasn't there and that he may have an alibi that keeps him from being able to be the person who perpetrated these crimes. And they made this assertion in court documents that were filed on Tuesday, or that were made public on Tuesday. And I've listened to a few experts talking about this now and how they feel about what's going on here. And they said that this is basically a nothing burger, is how they described it. They basically said that it's not them coming out and saying they have evidence that he was not there and all of that. Basically what they said was that they may be able to get evidence from so-called witnesses of the prosecution when they cross-examine them, and they're gonna leave that open to being able to have that. And there's rules of evidence, there's evidentiary rules, there's the rules pursuant to discovery that every attorney has to follow. And these attorneys that were talking about this said that it's just not, it just doesn't add up what they're doing. And the defense team needed to provide the court with, because they had a deadline to provide the court with an alibi. And they stopped short of doing that. And they stopped short of saying where he was exactly at the time of these horrific offenses that caused the panic, confusion, and anger in this small college town of, sorry guys, in Idaho. But it's just, to me, it's just the latest episode in another case of crazy. The judge entered the plea of not guilty for him back in May for the 4 counts of first-degree murder and the 1 count of burglary that he's charged with. We have since been informed that this is a capital case. They are seeking the death penalty in this case. And the filing with the defense filing this information comes a month after we were notified by the prosecution that they're seeking the death penalty against him in this case. They citing no mitigating circumstances, which preventing them from considering all penalties within the state, including capital punishment. And so they said that they wanted his indictment by the grand jury thrown out, which I don't see that happening. They have too much evidence. His trial's due to start October 2nd. His attorneys are asking the prosecutors to turn over more evidence about how the DNA links him to the murders, as well as details about the grand jury indictment. We all know that grand jury indictments are sealed, and we're not going to hear about that kind of stuff. But the Latah County District Court judge over the case, John Judge, earlier said this month that he was granting a 37-day stay of Kohberger's speedy trial deadline. And still, it did not apply to the stay, did not seem to apply to any other aspects of the trial, including him providing his alibi. But in Monday's court filings, Kohberger's attorney Taylor said that she was alluding to a small part of the defense's strategy and the additional needed time to prepare for that. A defendant's denial of the charges against him does not constitute an alibi, but as soon as he offers evidence that he was at some place other than where the crime of which he is charged was committed, he is raising the alibi defense, Taylor wrote. It is anticipated this evidence may be offered by way of cross-examination of witnesses produced by the state, as well as calling expert witnesses. Now, the way the experts that I heard on TV, on News Nation talk about this, they were basically stating that you have to remember, in this country, the defense doesn't have to defend anything. They don't have to prove anything. The defense doesn't have to do that. The defense doesn't have to offer up an alibi. But once they do, that's opening a huge, huge can of worms for the prosecution to go right after them. And I think that if they do this, from basically what the experts are saying is, even defense attorneys were saying this, if they go this route and they try to say he has some sort of an alibi and wasn't there, they better be prepared to bring him proof that he was on Mars, because otherwise the prosecution will eat them alive, basically, is what they said. As far as the whole DNA issue, again, we expect this. A good defense is going to try to poke holes in all of the evidence, and especially the DNA evidence. But if you guys listen to Steve from True Crime Web as I do, you know that DNA today in 2023 is strong evidence. It has gotten better and better every year, and they have gotten it down to where they can absolutely find all kinds of different DNA profiles now with the smallest amount of DNA, and they can also use the mitochondrial DNA now, which they weren't able to use before. We all know that in this instance, they got DNA off of the knife sheath, and the button on the knife sheath is where it was garnered from, and that they put this profile to the test in a genealogy database. They got a hit on Bryan Kohberger's father, and it said that the person who left the DNA on the knife sheath was a child of this man. And when they went looking, was a male child, and it would be Bryan. And he fit that because of where he was, where he, everything fit. And then when they started looking at him and looking at his cell phone records and all of the other evidence, it was pretty clear based on their probable cause affidavit what led them down the road to the indictment by the grand jury. They have tied him to these deaths with these DNA samples. They have surveillance footage of Bryan. They have the cell phone tracking software and the trash from outside the family home in Pennsylvania. They have so much circumstantial evidence. The search warrant revealed that Bryan's phone has been tracked near the student's home at least 12 times in the last 6 months before the attack happened. As we all remember, Bryan was arrested on December 29th in his parents' home in northeastern Pennsylvania, about 2,500 miles from where the crime occurred. I think that this case will eventually be considered a perfect case study of how the advances in technology leads to the arrest of Bryan Kohberger. I think that we will see that because it has definitely been the advances in technology and DNA and all of that that led to his arrest. And I don't see where he's got a leg to stand on. Like I said, he's going to have to place himself on Mars and really have some really good evidence to back that up, to go against the evidence that law enforcement has garnered against him. I think they did, CJK, I agree with you. I think they did a fantastic job in this case. I know that, everybody likes to throw law enforcement under the bus and say, how horrible of a job they did, or why didn't they see this and why didn't they see that? But you know what? It is not easy. These crimes are not easily solved, even though we think they should be. Hey, Butterfly Kisses, good to see you. I just think that there's a lot to be said for how law enforcement went about their job, did everything that they needed to do, and caught him as quickly as they did. I also think he made some mistakes. And obviously, he did. The fact that he turned his phone off, and did he not think that that was going to be a red flag? That whole, scenario, thinking that, well, if I have my phone off, they're not going to know that I'm there, even though his car was caught on surveillance. So I know there's been a lot of talk, that he's got this quote unquote alibi, but that's not what the court documents say. The court documents say they may use an alibi based upon cross-examination of prosecution witnesses. So we'll just have to wait and see. Again, he is up against the fight of his life. Of course, he's innocent until proven guilty. They all are in a court of law in this country, but he's got a row to hoe to get there with what's being put out there by the court filings and the things that we know in the case. And we don't know it all. There's so much we don't know. Hey, Ray Jones, how are you? Good to see you. So yeah, I mean, so much, like I said, going on. There's so much to talk about in the cases. And it just seems like everything kind of blew up in the last couple of days on some of these cases. And I was thinking about a few of the cases that that we've been covering and over the last 6 or 7, 8 months. And, you know, there's so many that still need to be talked about, and we need to show, we need to deal with, and hopefully get resolution on them. There's still so many missing children. And Dave, I think we're good. I don't think he's going to beat this. But I understand that fear, because there is no slam dunk in any case. Just look at O.J. Simpson. Look at Casey Anthony. I mean, there's a lot of cases that you can look at that people thought that it was a slam dunk and there was no way that this person was going to walk, and then they do. I definitely think it's a tactic. Mitzi, I think it's definitely a tactic on their part. That's why they didn't give an alibi. They basically said that they may choose to use that defense based upon evidence that's brought out in cross-examination. So, you know, I think what they're going to try to do is discredit the experts that the prosecution has that places Bryan at the scene of the crime. And that will be by DNA and also by the cell phone data that they have, and the data of the vehicle. You know, they're going to bring about the fact that the police were searching for the wrong year make of the wrong year of the model car. Originally, they put out that it was the wrong year, and then they changed the year, and they're going to use all of that as well. But it's they're going to try everything that they can possibly try in this case, because it is a death penalty case. They're fighting for his life. And so they're going to throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. And if they can plant seeds of reasonable doubt, then they, like we've said this all along, you guys, they have 12 jurors. They only need to convince one. In any of the cases we're talking about, they only need to convince one juror of reasonable doubt. And if that juror is strong enough to hold out, then that's all they have to do. They don't have to convince all 12. They just have to convince one. The burden of proof is huge on the prosecution. Always is. In any case, it's huge. It's up to the prosecution to prove their case. And that's daunting. That's not an easy slam dunk. How well do the prosecution witnesses come across to the jury? Are they deemed, truthful? Are they deemed credible experts? All of those things are going to be tested in this case, because it is such a high-tech case. With all the technology and the DNA and all of that, this is going to be a case where the jurors are going to be asked to believe this. And if you have jurors that are not tech savvy, they can get confused. I remember watching the OJ trial and watching the day after day after day of Barry Scheck up there talking about DNA and going through the DNA bit by bit, and people were bored. Jurors were bored. I mean, it was hard to keep them focused. Again, DNA was brand spanking new, and it was nothing people had heard about. So it was like a whole new technology, and people just didn't know what to think of it. Good night, Jerry. I hope you have a good day tomorrow. Thank you so much for being here. So, yeah. Oh, I think he's very calculating, Mitzi. I think he's a manipulator. I can guarantee you he thought about this. This is not something that he just acted and did. And I feel that he thinks he's smarter than law enforcement. And I think he's enjoying the notoriety. I think he's enjoying that. They said that he's watching every bit of his coverage as much as he can watch. So he's loving the fact that everybody is talking about him and that he's on all the news, the news channels and the news outlets. He probably is angry when that stops ceasing being when some of these other cases are taking precedence over him. I did, by the way, hear today that BTK spoke out about Lisk, about the Long Island serial killer, and said that he was a man molded in his image. For those that care what BTK has to say. But I think Rex Hueremann is a very scary kind of person. The stuff he was into, the torture and the pain, those kinds of individuals are extremely scary, in my opinion. And then, like I said, the fact that they live amongst you and go to work with you every day and ride the subway with you. And, all these people, I can't even imagine the people that have worked with him all these years as an architect and what they're thinking now based upon all the stuff that's come out. It's just crazy. But anyway, guys, that was my show for tonight. I've missed you all. I hope that you guys got some, good information out of it from me today. Like I said before, I've been thinking about the channel. I've been thinking about just different ways and thanks, Grizz. So thank you so much for being here. I so think you're wonderful, and I've missed you. I've missed seeing you. So thank you so much, Grizz, for being here. But yeah, I'm just trying to get my feet back into doing the stuff on a regular basis with the channel. My grandson will be in school starting next week, middle of next week. And so I will have a little bit more time to be able to focus and kind of see where I'm headed with things. But I love coming and just discussing the cases with you. There are so many, like I said, that are out there that we need to be talking about. I am going to be talking more about Evansdale because my good friends Ruckus and Steve with True Crime Web are working diligently on that case. And I definitely think that we owe Drew all the attention that we can garner for it. I want to get back and focus on Flora because I think Flora needs to be still focused on, and we haven't been talking about it much. So, but yeah. Hey, Copper Horse, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate all of you so much. But take care, everybody, and I will see you soon. Thank you so much for being here. Good night, everybody, and stay safe and always be kind.